Jallianwala Bagh massacre has no parallel in modern history of the world in terms of the brutality unleashed against humanity. On this 100th anniversary of the massacre, it is important to revisit the history as a tribute to the martyrs. In the First World War, India supported the Britain, contributing men and money, thus enduring hardships of food scarcity, rising prices, increased taxation, the restriction of press freedom, and the curtailment of personal liberty. Indian subjects had suffered from severe famine on the failure of the monsoon in 1918 and terrible mortality from the worldwide influenza epidemic that year. The people of India had helped to win the war. It was the time for their reward. They had proved their right to be treated as an equal member of the empire. However, their hopes remained a mere dream due to disappointment with the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms and the passing of Rowlatt Act. The Rowlatt Act extended the wartime measures of preventive indefinite detention, incarceration without trial, and no right of appeal in the Defence of India Act 1915. To protest against the unjust act, Mahatma Gandhi launched passive resistance movement or Satyagrah on 1st of March 1919. A hartal in Amritsar, a city of 150,000 people, on 30th of March passed off quietly. However, the government served prohibitory orders to leaders Dr. Satyapal, a local Home Rule leader and an active member of Arya Samaj, on 29th March, and to barrister Saifuddin Kichlu, who was the chairman of Punjab Satyagrah Sabha and a prominent Khilafat activist, and Pandit Kotumal, a member of the Congress Party, on 4th of April. A private meeting was held on the evening of the 5th of April, at which both Dr. Satyapal and Dr. Kichlu were present, and it was decided to go on hartal on 6th of April. The second hartal passed off quietly. The next 3 days in Amritsar passed without any incidents. Mahatma Gandhi left Bombay for Punjab to hold Satyagrah against the Rowlatt Act on 8th April. After learning this, the government imposed an order forbidding his entry into the Punjab and Delhi. Gandhi was intercepted at the railway station at Palwal in Punjab province, and after protesting against the order, he agreed to return to Bombay. With the spread of this news, hartals, protests started in Ahmedabad, Punjab and Delhi. Serious protests occurred in Ahmedabad, Lahore, Amritsar and Kasur, cutting telegraph wires and holding up trains and tearing up rails. On the evening of 9th, the Hindu festival of Ram Navami was celebrated by Hindus and Muslims alike, reflecting religious fraternization, challenging the British policy of divide and rule. Water was provided by Muslims and drunk from their hands by Hindus. Political cries were raised in the procession instead of religious cries. A party of Muslim students was dressed to represent Turkish soldiers, Britain's enemies. This was not taken lightly by the government. In addition to this, the city began to fill up with people arriving for the Baisakhi, horse and cattle fair, due to start the next day. The government thought that the large numbers were coming into the city to form a Danda Fauj to drive the British out. Preempting the trouble, provincial government issued order on 9th of April under Defence of India Act to deport Dr. Kichlu and Dr. Satyapal to Dharmshala. On 10th of April morning, both were invited to Deputy Commissioner's bungalow, arrested and driven away to Dharmshala secretly. The news of deportation spread throughout the city by 11:30 a.m. and about 50,000 people started to gather, demanding the release of deportees. Clashes between soldiers and people took place on the Hall Gate Bridge over the railway and other parts of the city. 8 to 11 protesters also died during the violent clashes. Enraged crowd looted and burnt the National Bank and the Alliance Bank, killing their managers. Several other Europeans in the city were attacked. Troops were requisitioned from other parts of the province to control the situation. General Dyer received telegram at Jalandhar at 4 p.m. on 10th April saying that troops, guns and an aeroplane were needed urgently in Amritsar. He left for Amritsar at 6 p.m. with 475 British and 710 Indian soldiers. 11th April passed peacefully in Amritsar. Funerals of the deceased took place by evening. General Dyer took command of the city and imposed a de facto martial law. Later in the evening of 12th April, a meeting was held in the Daab Khatika Mohalla, where Hansraj, an aide to Dr. Kichlu, decided that there will be a public meeting in the Jallianwala Bagh at 4 p.m. on 13th April. On Sunday morning, 13th April, General Dyer marched through Amritsar to make a proclamation prohibiting all meetings and assemblies. A town crier loudly read the proclamation at 19 prominent places at the beat of drum. However, it was not read in the area containing Jallianwala Bagh and the Golden Temple, which were at the heart of the city. Hence, only 8,000 to 10,000 people, constituting around 10% of the population, heard the official proclamation. At the same time, 4 Indians paraded the streets, covering the entire city, beating empty kerosene tin and announcing that a meeting would be held in the afternoon in Jallianwala Bagh. Since it was Baisakhi, the Sikh New Year's Day, worshippers thronged into Golden Temple and later gathered at the nearby Jallianwala Bagh to rest before going home. Outside the city, the annual Baisakhi fair continued until the police closed it at 2 p.m. and the crowd from neighbouring village also gathered at the Bagh. Jallianwala Bagh was an open area of 6 to 7 acres, surrounded with high walls 10 feet high. It had 5 narrow entrances, some with locked gates. In the centre stood a small domed samadhi and a large well. General Dyer came to know about the meeting at 12:40 p.m. However, he made no attempt to prevent it being held. He believed the people defying his orders and holding a meeting should be punished. Dyer was informed that the meeting has started at 4:15 p.m. He marched to the Jallianwala Bagh with 50 armed men with rifles and 2 armoured cars. The armoured cars were left outside the Bagh as they were too wide to drive in. This prevented the use of their machine guns. If it had been possible, he would have opened fire with machine guns, causing higher casualties, he later stated to Hunter Commission. Dyer ordered his troops to move into the Bagh. The troops took firing position. Seeing the soldiers, the crowd was frightened. But Hansraj, one of the organizers, shouted out that the British would not fire, and if they did, the bullets would be blank. This did not stop the panic, and people began to run. Without any warning to the crowd, Dyer gave order to fire. He personally directed to fire the densest parts of the crowd. Those who exposed themselves trying to climb the walls were picked off and shot by the soldiers. People tried to hide behind the well or jumped into it, drowning and dying in the crush inside. Many got trampled under the feet of rushing crowds and lost their lives. Firing started between 5 and 5:15 p.m. and lasted for about 15 minutes. 1,650 rounds fired. He stopped the firing because ammunition was running low. Exact number of natives killed is not known accurately. Official estimates put the numbers as 379 killed and 1,200 wounded in a gathering of 25,000. However, the Congress Inquiry Committee quoted more than 1,000 casualties. No arrangements were made to succor the wounded and dispose of the dead. One of the eyewitnesses said the corpses were 10 to 12 feet high in places. The curfew came into force at 8 p.m. and the wounded were left in the Bagh till next morning when the work of clearing the bodies was resumed. On the morning of 15th April, the Government of India declared martial law in Punjab. Dyer announced special provisions in the lane where a female missionary was beaten. The Kucha Kodiawala street was closed, and anyone wishing to proceed along the street was to be made to crawl the 150 yards of its length. This is infamously termed as crawling order. Some 50 Indians were made to crawl the lane. Dyer also ordered to flog the people suspected to have beaten the missionary. The crawling order and the flogging caused great humiliation to the Indians. The order was later withdrawn after protests against it. The inquiry committee, called the Hunter Committee, was ordered to inquire about the Jallianwala Bagh. The Hunter Committee criticized Dyer on two grounds. One, he opened fire without any warning, and second, he continued fire even after the crowd started dispersing and had committed a grave error. However, it was convinced that General Dyer acted honestly and his action checked the spread of the disturbances in Punjab. The ultra-conservative Morning Post backed Dyer and collected a huge fund of 26,000 sterling euro, approximately €1 million in today's time, in his support. Later in 1940, Udham Singh, a revolutionary belonging to the Ghadar party, assassinated Michael O'Dyer, the former Lieutenant Governor of the Punjab, at the time of Jallianwala Bagh. He was tried and hanged later. This incident divided England into two camps. The first camp thought that Dyer had taught bloody Browns a lesson, and thereby saved India from second mutiny similar to 1857. However, the second camp protested the act of brutality and, far from saving India, ignited a spark of nationalism, resulting in Britain losing brightest jewel in her imperial crown. After independence, the Government of India built Jallianwala Bagh Memorial in the memory of the martyrs. On this 100th anniversary of the brutal massacre, let us remember the martyrs and their sacrifice for the freedom of our nation.